What if I told you that the most terrifying giant in the Bible wasn't that much of a giant? Imagine coming face to face with someone so tall that you could barely see his face. We all know the story. David, the small shepherd, against Goliath, the 10-foot monster. But today, we are going to open the Bible's box of secrets. You probably use the word Goliath to talk about something impossible to defeat. He is the final boss in your video games, that exam you are afraid of. But in biblical times, things are not always what they seem. If Goliath went to a clothing store today, he might find his size easier than you think. In this video, we are going to discover what the oldest texts say. I promise you that by the end, you will see this fight as a duel of intelligence, not strength. But what nobody expected is that the answer was hidden in a small translation error from 2,000 years ago. To know how tall Goliath was, you have to understand what a cubit is. No, it's not what you hit against the table that makes you see stars. It was the way ancients measured things using their arm. The problem is that every culture had its own size of cubit, a total mess. Here comes the interesting part. The oldest texts, like the Dead Sea Scrolls, say something different. They claim that Goliath measured 4 cubits and a span. If we bring that into our world, Goliath would measure 2 meters and 6 centimeters. That is exactly the height of an average NBA star. Impressive, yes, but he is not a monster that blocks out the sun. So why does it say in some Bibles that he was a human skyscraper? It turns out that more modern versions inflated his height for pure marketing. They wanted David to look like a Marvel superhero when defeating him. It's like when you tell people that the fish you caught was huge, and in reality it was a sardine. But what nobody expected is that archaeology would find the walls of his city and discover a disturbing secret. Recently, some archaeologists excavated in the ancient city of Gath. That was Goliath's neighborhood, where he learned to be a bully in armor. They discovered that the city walls had a very crazy width, 2 meters and 6 centimeters. Does that number sound familiar? It's the exact same height from the ancient texts. In the Bible, visual metaphor was used a lot. If someone was the strongest warrior, they would say he was as big as the walls of his city. It's like if today you said a boxer is as strong as a tank. Nobody thinks the boxer has tracks and fires cannons, right? It's just a way of saying he is a tough guy. Goliath wasn't a mutant. He was the tank of the Philistine team, a very muscular guy who intimidated everyone with his size. But if he wasn't a giant monster, why was the whole army so afraid of him? It turns out that Goliath had a physical problem that he tried to hide at all costs. But what nobody expected is that his supposed strength was actually his greatest medical weakness. Many experts and theologians believe that Goliath suffered from something called gigantism. Basically, his body manufactured growth hormone like a hose out of control. This makes you very tall, but it has side effects that nobody tells you about in school. One of the most common is that you start to lose your eyesight. That's why the Bible mentions a detail we always ignore. Goliath needed a shield bearer. The most feared warrior had to go hand in hand with a boy so he wouldn't trip. Imagine the strongest warrior in the world being guided as if he were at an eye exam. David, who was a very observant young man, noticed this. He knew that Goliath was a very slow human tank and that he could barely see what was coming from the side. While the giant shouted insults, David was already loading his secret weapon. It wasn't a sword fight. It was a target-shooting duel against a man who saw blurry. But what nobody expected is that the weight of his own armor would give us the final proof. The story says that Goliath's armor weighed about 57 kilograms of pure bronze. Try putting that weight on a 10-foot man who has back problems due to gigantism. He would fall to the ground on the very first step. His bones would break like toothpicks under so much weight. On the other hand, for a warrior of 2 meters and a bit more, that weight is manageable. It's like carrying a very heavy backpack on a mountain hike. Goliath was simply an elite athlete with a physical condition that made him look imposing, but very vulnerable. The final fact you have to tell your friends tonight is this. Statistically, the historical Goliath was only 10 centimeters taller than the average player in today's NBA. David didn't defeat a magical being. Instead, a smart shepherd used the technology of his sling to defeat an athlete with poor eyesight. Do you think that nowadays we also exaggerate our giants out of pure fear? Tell me in the comments if you know someone who measures more than the real Goliath. If you liked discovering the truth behind the myth, give it a like and subscribe for more biblical curiosities you didn't know you needed. See you in the next video.